Here's Brody Brazil.
Okay, I'm going to hit you with 5 things you need to know about the Howard Terminal site. Honestly, we talk about this place all the time, but have you ever seen it? Do you know where it's at? Have you ever been there? Do you understand its limitations or its history or the potential for its future? That's what we're going to dive into here on this video. And by the way, since you're seeing this, since you're on the channel, can I ask that you subscribe? I'm making more videos like this. I'm really digging in on the A's and Howard Terminal, also the Sharks, other Bay Area sports, and things of interest. So I appreciate your support in advance. Number one thing you need to know about Howard Terminal of these 5 is that it is actually physically detached from the rest of the Port of Oakland, and the site has not been used for shipping operations regularly since 2013. Let's begin with the first half of that here as we take a look at the Port of Oakland. This is a map, all the different colors and regions, but you can kind of see how the Port of Oakland dominates the waterfront here in West Oakland between the Bay Bridge and between Jack London Square. Howard Terminal is about 50 acres. That's a small measure when you consider that the rest of the port is about 1,250 acres. So this small sliver of land, it's not right in the middle of the Port of Oakland. It's not, dead center. It's literally on, the southern eastern tip, let's say, and this map is not north up. So it's on the very edge of the Port of Oakland. And like I said, you can see the arrow pointing to it and the circle around it. But if we zoom in closer, it's physically detached from the rest of the Port of Oakland. Like that gray area, which you can see right there to the left of that circle, kind of over or under the circle, that's a steel recycling facility. That actually separates Howard Terminal, which is one of the oldest sites as part of the Port of Oakland, from the rest of the port. So small sliver and detached. It is no way right in the middle of the port. I understand people have said, yeah, this is valuable land. It's land that has shoreline, so that's valuable to the shipping community. I understand that. But it's a small sliver. It's on the very edge. I think people should know that. There's also this. We talked about how it hasn't been used since 2013. That's when the BASIN shipping company, they used to occupy this space and use it. They actually terminated their lease early at Howard Terminal. They wanted to get out of there ASAP because that estuary is not deep enough. The site wasn't good enough. It wasn't modern enough for the bigger, newer ships that they were docking there at Howard Terminal. So the BASIN shipping company, like I said, up and left. They relocated to a different spot that accommodated their business better in Oakland's Inner Harbor. So that just goes to show you this site has not been used to load or unload ships in almost 10 years. Which brings us to point number 2. There really have not been any other fruitful projects proposed for the Howard Terminal site. How do we know this? Because the Port of Oakland recently released that in the last 9 years, there's only been 3 things pitched to them to develop this land. And they've been actively marketing it like, hey, we're thinking about changing Howard Terminal. Anybody got any ideas? So the 3 ideas go like this. 2 of them are for bulk and commodity export operations. I say have been. They were proposed. I think these are off the table now. But those bulk and commodity export operations, those commodities are things like borax, petroleum coke, coal, and iron pellets. So they would use the whole site to basically bring these things there, load them onto a ship, and then get them out of the Bay Area. That's what the proposals were for Howard Terminal. They never were accepted. There was also another proposal to only use 3 of the site's 50 acres. Small piece of it. 3 of 50 acres to expand that steel recycling facility north of Howard Terminal. So that one, doesn't make sense. What would you do with the other 47 acres? So those 3 things proposed. And then the A's new ballpark, new Major League Stadium, 3,000 housing units, residential, commercial, all that stuff. What a huge contrast between those first 3 projects and the ballpark when you really think about it. Okay, point number 3, the Port of Oakland itself says the site of Howard Terminal is, quote, not operationally functional for modern shipping needs. Now that's evidenced by the BASIN shipping company, like I said, up and leaving as they did back in 2013. But there's a lot of problems with the Howard Terminal site in terms of future shipping operations. Number 1 is that estuary depth, right? The waterway where the ships would come in and berth at Howard Terminal, it's only 42 feet. That's not deep enough for the new, bigger ships that dock and berth elsewhere at the Port of Oakland. They just cannot do it at Howard Terminal. There's a reason they can't use that spot. Howard Terminal is also one of the oldest properties at the Port of Oakland. And so the facilities there on the ground, they're between 30 and 50 years old. A lot of things would need to be redone. The infrastructure itself on the site. The 4 cranes you see there, they are respectively from the years 1968, 1980, and 1986. And the Port of Oakland says they are not reusable on any regular basis. Like, they cannot be fashioned for operation again. They would have to get rid of them, replace them. And to the point here, and the last thing is so critical, if they wanted to use this site again, right, to update Howard Terminal for modern shipping needs, that alone would cost $250 million. I don't know how or where they'd get that from, but it just goes to show you what would have to be poured into it if, in fact, it were ever used for shipping again. And by the way, I'm also going to tell you about this project. 10 acres of it need to be removed to expand the turning basin, and that would also greatly impact any future shipping ideas. So we'll get to that. In fact, right now, number 4, 10 of 50 acres at the Howard Terminal site are likely to be removed to expand the turning basin. What's a turning basin? Well, we talked about bigger, more modern ships. They berth elsewhere, and they need to turn around somewhere. And so you're seeing here this map of the project and kind of see that crescent-shaped cutout here. I mean, you can see in gray where it's lined up where the site currently is. It's kind of squared off there. They're going to take a bite out of the Howard Terminal site. They're going to cut off 10 acres, most likely. This is not confirmed yet, but this is the maritime reservation scenario, and it's already part of the approved environmental impact report. So this is not detrimental to the ballpark. I know what you're thinking. This is not a deal breaker for the ballpark or the site or the project, but it's a huge concession that the A's would be making for this Howard Terminal ballpark to cut off 10 acres of the site that they want to take over so that the shipping community can have this turning basin. They can bring larger ships into the estuary, expand that basin, and future-proof the Port of Oakland, right? They can make it sustainable for future operations and keep it modern. So Howard Terminal as a 50-acre site, that number is going to change. The A's are up for this. It's part of their idea here. And just so you know, like I said before, how does this site look now in terms of shipping operations? If you have to cut off 10 acres, and a lot of it is waterfront acres, and you have to remove 2 cranes, as we've seen here, you can't really use it as a modern shipping terminal. All right, last but not least, 5 things you need to know about Howard Terminal. The site right now generates about $70,000 per year in property tax revenue. $70,000 a year. Let that sink in as I tell you the next number. It will eventually go to more than $10 million a year in annual property tax revenue to the city and to the county. What a huge increase. But I've also got to tell you, with that increase, your property taxes do not increase anywhere else due to this project. That's number 1 on my list. If you own property in Oakland, your property taxes do not go up because of this project. How do they go up? How do you bridge that gap from $70K to $10+ million a year? Well, all that extra revenue is going to be generated from new properties at the site of Howard Terminal. So that makes sense, right? Right now, it's nothing. $70,000 a year, that's all the tax revenue that the city and county get. All these new developments, commercial, residential properties, the ballpark itself, those are all brand new taxpayers. And they're going to fund the city and the county more than $10 million a year when this thing's all built out. So that goes to the city, that goes to the county of Alameda. And what are they going to spend it on? Well, the city has already identified a handful of things, including cultural affairs, schools, libraries, parks, public safety, and violence prevention. Look, we understand the city and the county, they need as much money these days as they can get to try and correct a lot of things and improve the quality of life in this region. $10+ million a year can go a long way. It's not going to fix everything, let's be honest. Can go a long way, and it's something that the city or the county don't have anything close to right now. So there you go. That's 5 things you need to know about the Howard Terminal site. Really appreciate you checking this out. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you learned something. Subscribe to the channel and leave any comments you have down below.